professionals that possesses multiple academic qualifications, having studied law at the University of Nairobi, where I obtained a bachelor's degree, second class upper division honors. I followed that with qualifications at the Kenya School of Law, where I obtained a postgraduate diploma in law, whereupon I was thereafter in 2003, I was admitted to the bar, to the role of advocates of the High Court of Kenya, to commence my journey as a legal practitioner, as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Later on, not necessarily in the order of chronology, later on, Mr. Chair, I followed up my legal qualifications with a specialized certificate in implementation of the international human rights treaties at the University of Nottingham in the UK. And this was through the Chevening, what they call the Chevening Fellowship by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. So I'm a Chevening fellow or scholar in that respect. And then with having done that, I also made sure that I later on did a master's in law at the University of Derby in the UK. And in that regard, I deviated a little bit from the issues of human rights, governance. I focused more on issues of transnational oil, gas, and energy law. And again, distinguished panel, this was in recognition of the fact that Kenya was also going through, by 2012, we had also discovered oil reserves, so I needed to have some knowledge on how that field works. So that's, in a nutshell, my journey around acquiring legal qualifications, both in Kenya and outside Kenya. Mr. Chairman, my academic journey continued, and in mid-2000s, I was actually among the first Kenyans to venture into the field of conflict resolution, conflict and peace building studies, where I later on acquired a Master of Arts in International Peace, Conflict and Development Studies. This was a new field that time. Not many people knew about it, but I ventured into it out of the personal experiences from where I come from, a county, a region that has been prone to conflicts and violence. So I decided to study so that I get the necessary understanding of conflict analysis and tools that can help in the resolution of those conflicts. And finally, Mr. Chair, in terms of my academic journey, when I got an opportunity to work with an international organization in the United Nations, UNDP, United Nations Development Program. I felt it was necessary for me to sharpen my skills and to gain the necessary knowledge and tools to improve my project management skills. So that's why I got a partial scholarship from the United Nations to study a Master of Science in Projects Management at the University of Liverpool, again in the UK. So these are some of the tools, these are some of the skills, these are some of the academic qualifications that I'm bringing to the table as we have this dialogue on my suitability as a chairman. And Mr. Chairman, with your permission, maybe later on as we have the conversation, we can relate, we can see the relationship between these qualifications and the work that I'll be undertaking, if successful, at the Commission. Mr. Chairman, in terms of my experience and practical work experience, I must point out to this Commission that even way before I got my degree at the University of Nairobi and got these academic qualifications, I had the rare privilege to work for our electoral management body that time, the predecessor to the current IEBC and IEC. And that is the ECK, Electoral Commission of Kenya. Way back in 1997, before I joined the university, I was recruited as a returning officer. to undertake the work of the Commission in voter registration during one of those instances where the Commission undertook mass voter registration. So through that assignment, I gained an understanding on how to register voters, how to prepare the voters register, verification, cleaning it up. So that really exposed me to the work of the Commission in that respect. Later on, Mr. Chair and distinguished panelists, in 1997, during the general election in December, and again in 2002, I served the electoral body as a presiding officer, where I managed the polling station, and I ensured that the voting preparations and the voting, the counting, the tallying, the declaration of results was done in those two respective elections, which were fairly successful, and they ended up with the good outcomes. So, Mr. Chair and distinguished panelists, that is how I got to interact with the work of an electoral management body. And so it is not therefore then a surprise that much later I sustained the same interest and desire to work with an electoral body such as now IEBC. And I think at some point in 2014, I did apply, and I was considered for the position of IEBC CEO. We went through rigorous interviews by IEBC through KPMG and other panels, and I must report that I was among the top 3 candidates. And luckily, of course, or unfortunately, the chance went to someone else who was also a deserving Kenyan. So I got to miss that opportunity, but then I never lost hope, so I kept on, and that journey has brought me to this place at the moment. So, Mr. Chair, in terms of experience, as I was going to go there, I have worked in different institutions, as you may see from my CV. I have worked in law firms. I have worked in Parliament for 2.5 years. I have worked with an independent national commission, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, for 3 years. Then I joined the United Nations, where I actually spent most of my professional career for close to 12 years before I went back home to serve the people of Turkana in Turkana County as their first county attorney. So this, over the last close to 20 years, I have accumulated experience throughout my work in these various institutions, which required different skills, which required different competencies, and of course, through which I acquired a lot of training and capacity building. So, Mr. Chair, I think, I don't know whether I should go into the specifics.
I think that's fair enough. We have noted that most of those things are in your CV, and we appreciate both your academic and career journey and the experience that you cite and that it brings to this panel today. Allow me to ask the Vice Chair to ask some questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Ethekon, the role of the IEBC is a very intense role when it comes to electoral matters. And even though you have a background in the legal profession, do you have any other multidisciplinary skills that can help you as a chairman of the IEBC to be able to deliver your mandate as the chairperson?
Thank you, Vice Chair, for that question. As I said during my introduction, I actually have invested a lot in acquiring multiple skills. So I'm not just a legal practitioner alone, but I also bring other skills in peace building, conflict management, projects management. So I will demonstrate to you how these skills will be of use to the delivery of the mandate of the IEBC. Madam Chair, Vice Chairperson, as a legal practitioner with 2 master's degrees and wide experience having worked in Parliament, my role was to look at policy and legislative briefs. That was a special assignment under the Parliamentary Strengthening Program by SUNY. And through that, I got to understand how the policy process is done in Kenya. Later on, when I joined the Commission, my role was on research, policy, and legislative review and implementation of international human rights treaties. So I know for sure that IEBC is an institution that is anchored in law, that is supposed to ensure compliance with law, that ensures that our elections are managed in a way that is compliant with the principles that are enshrined in the Constitution. There is an elaborate legal framework that governs our electoral processes and, of course, boundary delimitation, right from the electoral planning, execution, up to post-election review and audits. The boundary delimitation, again, will require that understanding of the procedures, the processes, and the legal provisions around that. There are issues of dispute resolution, again, were arising out of the specific mandate of the IEBC. So as a lawyer, I would already be comfortable because I have the knowledge and the tools and to analyze the law, to interpret it, to find it. And more importantly, because my role at the National Commission on Human Rights was actually based on legislative review, I should be able, as the chairman, to lead my commission, commissioners and secretariat and the stakeholders in proposing, in making a case for reviews where, legal reviews where those are necessary. So for me, that skill of legal interpretation, legal writing, legislative drafting will be handy. Then secondly, in terms of my knowledge and skills in projects management, for example. You look at a project, we know, of course, elections. Sometimes elections generally are a process. But we can also look at an election, a specific election, for example, the 2022 elections that is coming in a few years. We can look at it as a project.
You mean 2027?
2027, I mean. The 2022, sorry, Mr. Chair. The 2022 is just past. For example, if we take the election of 2027, already from a project manager's point of view, you can look at that election as a project. And a project has a start date and an end date. And I'm sure that will be reflected in our electoral management election operations plan. So when you look at it, then you have to deliver these elections within the time frame. You have to deliver it within the budget. You have to deliver it within the scope. Then you have to deliver it again, working together with with the project stakeholders. In this case, for the case of elections, you are looking at the various stakeholders we are working with. So as a project management professional, there are specific skills that I'll bring. For example, time management, attention to detail, leading teams with emotional intelligence, making sure that all the teams at the commission, all the stakeholders, their issues or their concerns are taken into account. So there are those specific including financial management and risk management. So those are some of the special skills that as a project manager I bring on the table. Thirdly, Madam Vice Chair, my knowledge and skills in the professional field of peace building, conflict management, because the Constitution calls upon us to ensure the elections are free from violence, intimidation, harassment. Those skills I have, for example, in the past, then maybe if I explain some of the things that I used to do at UNDP. We supported this country to come up with the conflict early warning and early response system. It is there, it is working, it's called WIANO. Those of you who have interacted with the National Steering Committee on Conflict Prevention and Management, that system worked during the 2010 referendum. It worked during the 2013 elections, and I've not interacted with of late, but I am assured that it's working, and that's a system that. So those are some of the skills that I bring in terms of mediation, negotiation skills, facilitating processes that ensure the resolution of some of the internal conflicts, but also other conflicts with external actors. So in a nutshell, Madam Chair, without belaboring the point, I am here with all these tools at your disposal, at the disposal of Kenyans, to make sure that we improve our electoral processes in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ethekon. Just as a follow-up, could you give this panel a scenario whereby your leadership skills have been tried and tested in your past career experiences and exposure?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think as we grow professionally and as we work through the various institutions that we've served, there are those moments that call for extraordinary measures. And as leaders, in our own right, in our own standing, we are called upon to respond to those situations. I think for me, I'll give an example, because I've been in this country for quite some time. And for the short period I've lived in this country, I have seen our elections, for example, evolve from the Mlolongo system when I was a young child up to the 1992, 97, up to 2007, and the rest. For me, I'll focus specifically to 2007. I was a young professional, just recruited to join UNDP from the National Commission on Human Rights. And in that role, I was required to set up a unit that will deal with issues of crisis prevention and recovery. So I moved from legal practice now to the field of crisis management and conflict prevention and recovery. But little didn't I know that I think it was almost like a setup, because my seniors in New York and in Geneva, working for the Bureau for Crisis Prevention and Recovery, they came to Kenya. They told me, we need you to hit the ground running. We need you to work around the clock, because we feel and we see, according to our conflict analysis and scenario building, Kenya is going to sort of degenerate into some sort of violent conflicts. But I, of course, as a young professional and passionate Kenyan who believes that Kenya is an island of peace in the sea of turmoil around, I didn't believe them. But fast forward, the election came so fast before I could do anything much, setting up the structures and work in identifying even the national institutions to work with. Then, boom, after elections, we saw what happened, post-election violence, there was crisis. So at that point, I did not have so much experience in that field, because I came from the Human Rights Commission, human rights lawyer, all that. So at that moment of crisis, that is when I stepped up my game as a young leader. I had to lead a team of those professionals who are deployed from across the world to come and support Kenya during that moment of crisis, to undertake mediation, to look at how to respond to some of the conflict hotspots. How do we lower the temperatures? What is it that we need to do to handle some of those hotspots? How do we help the country recover in terms of from that election violence? So I was thrust in the middle of all this and with very little experience. But I managed, out of creativity, innovativeness, and resilience, to actually lead those teams of some of the most experienced people in resolving global conflicts. And I was there to support them, to guide.
Free will to serve, right, to vote. In order to operationalize that provision of the Constitution, Parliament enacted the Elections Act and the Elections Voter Education Regulations of 2017. To what extent does this law, therefore, support the right of citizens to vote, particularly those citizens that are marginalized, have persons living with disabilities, and those in diaspora?